Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to introduce you to Collections Trust and to the Spectrum Standard. Collections Trust is a UK-based charity that helps museums capture and share the information that gives objects meaning, and the core of our work is Spectrum. So what is Spectrum? Spectrum is a collections management standard. It covers all of the things that might happen to an object in the care of a museum, and it breaks all of that down into 21 different procedures. Some of these are day-to-day activities like updating locations for objects, and others are more occasional like updating valuations or insurance cover. And you can read all 21 procedures on our website. Spectrum has been developed over the years through consultation, and it's for museums of any size and any collection type. To keep things simple, we use the term museums to cover all collections-based organisations, and you to mean everyone involved in managing collections, from the governing body who set policies to every level of staff and volunteer. A museum might not implement all 21 of the procedures that you can see on the screen here. There are some core procedures called the primary procedures, and the others might be used if they're relevant. There are 9 of these primary procedures, and these are the ones that most museums will use most of the time, and they're also essential for accountability. UK museums who want to meet the requirements of the accreditation scheme will have to demonstrate that they meet, or at least have a plan to achieve, the Spectrum standard for these 9 procedures. I'm going to show you now how a Spectrum procedure works using the object entry procedure as an example. So as you can see here, each procedure starts with a definition that sums up the procedure in a single sentence. For example, object entry is about logging all objects coming into your care for whatever reason, including loans, inquiries, and potential acquisitions. This definition is followed by the scope section, which gives more context and explains when to use this procedure. When you're looking at a procedure in Spectrum, it's useful to remember that some elements, like the policy and the minimum requirements, are the standard, so that's what's required, and other elements are guidance. So I'll introduce each of these different elements throughout the rest of the video. We'll start with the policy section of a procedure, which gives you questions you'll need to consider for each of these procedures. For example, you need to consider what circumstances you're happy to accept objects into your care, who's authorised to do this, and what are your terms and conditions for accepting deposited objects. You don't need a separate policy for each Spectrum procedure. Instead, you might include the answers to relevant questions within 4 broad policies that set out how you will develop, document, use, and care for your collections to further your museum's mission. And those 4 policies are collections development, collections information or documentation, collections access, and collections care policy. Although there's likely to be crossover, the Spectrum procedures might fall under these policy areas, as you can see in this image. The standard also includes a set of minimum requirements you need to meet in your museum's own written procedure. This section includes an explanation of why each requirement is important, highlighting any risks, including legal, ethical, or security risks. For example, you must record why objects have been left with you so that you can process them correctly. In Spectrum, we don't dictate how you achieve these requirements, and each museum might approach this in a slightly different way. But we do provide guidance in the form of the suggested procedure. And that suggested procedure comes in 2 forms: simple flowcharts and more detailed text versions. This can be a good starting point for your own procedure, but an important thing to stress here is that there is no one way to put any of these procedures into practice. Whether your museum uses paper-based systems, collections management software, or often a combination of the 2, you can adapt the suggested procedure to suit your needs as long as your way of doing things meets the requirements that we just looked at. The flowcharts in Spectrum show a suggested step-by-step approach. On the left hand of a flowchart, you'll often see prompts, such as you can see here, an unexpected arrival. It will also show you links to other relevant procedures. For example, the suggested step here is to check and note the object's condition and assess any risks, Therefore, the suggestion is that you go to and then return from condition checking and technical assessment. On the right-hand side, we often suggest pieces of information to record, for example, object identification information. Spectrum calls these units of information, and you can find guidance on how to record this information in the appendix of Spectrum. If we suggest you record something, we give you a definition and suggest how you might record that piece of information. One example, which you can see here, is entry number, which is a unique number assigned to the entry of an object or group of objects. You can find the full Spectrum appendix with all of these units of information on our website. There is also a text version of the suggested procedure, which mirrors those flowcharts but provides extra guidance. If you're looking at the online version of Spectrum, you can also click on each of those units of information that we just looked at to bring up further information. For example, brief description. So to recap the different elements of a Spectrum procedure, a museum needs to decide on its policy for numbering, so the format and the marking techniques that you'll be using. The requirement is that you give a unique number to each accessioned object and securely label or mark it with that number. And in the guidance, we suggest some sensible number formats, but your museum might decide to do things a little bit differently. And because museums do things slightly differently, they should all have a set of written instructions, which is often called a procedures manual. And this manual explains exactly how each procedure is implemented by that museum. So it's really important for consistency as well as being useful for training and induction. There's no template for this, but there is guidance and some examples on the Collections Trust website. And apart from being useful for the museum, it's also one of the ways for museums to demonstrate that they're following best practice. You can find more information about the Spectrum Standard, including lots of supporting guidance on our website, which is www.collectionstrust.org.uk. And we've also put some useful links in the video description below. Thanks for watching.